Okay. Hi to everybody. I have the difficult and not so interesting task of discussing with you a framework on policy indicators that could be common for all European countries regarding school leadership from the perspective of equity and learning. What I will first do is describe something about what indicators are, what we mean by indicators, and then I will describe some policy goals that indicators will help us monitor and evaluate. We all work as social scientists with indicators. Also, as individuals, we use indicators in every aspect of our life. In a policy context, an indicator is a quantitative or qualitative measure of how close we are to achieve a policy goal. It is important to understand that in policy, we don't use only quantitative indicators, but also qualitative ones. Indicators help us analyze and compare performance across time and within and between school systems. School leadership policy indicators are based on reliable, or should be based on reliable and, if possible, comparable data, which are essential for designing strategies and policies to improve school leadership capacity for Europe's school systems and monitoring their implementation. I have identified 5 different kinds of indicators that we should work upon, and also we can change or reflect upon them. I have identified input indicators. For example, I have an example of a policy supporting the implementation of a training program for school leaders on equity. So, an input indicator on this kind of policy would be what is the public spending available for such a kind of program. A process indicators are mainly about how things are done, and in our specific context, it's about governance, how policies are formed. For example, how stakeholders are involved in what should be the training, what should be the content of the training, and who should be the target of the training. And we have discussed a lot about such kinds of indicators, stressing that in all aspects of policy development, school leaders, parents, teachers, inspectorates, government agencies should be all involved in a collaborative process, in a distributed process of policy formation. Output indicators are what policies bring to the ground. For example, in a training program policy, what is the capacity of this training program, of a training program, how many teachers or school leaders can accommodate, how many can participate in this, what is happening with school leaders in isolated areas, can they participate? So these are kinds of questions that output indicators can offer an answer. Now, we have outcome indicators and impact indicators. Outcome indicators is, for example, show something about what has been achieved. It talks about the goals that have been achieved. And for example, if you have a training program on equity for school leaders, you probably want to know what is the share of school leaders trained on equity at the end of this program. or what are the perceptions of school leaders on the relevance of this training program to their work. And we have also impact indicators, and with this we mean what are the changes that actually happened on the ground. Do we have, for example, more students feeling that they are treated with fairness from the teachers? So this is an impact indicator of a training program or of a wider school leadership development policy. So, what kind of data can we use to inform indicators? We have objective measures, for example, the level of finance that is devoted, public spending that should be devoted or is devoted to a training program or to a strategy. What is the number of school leaders trained through a process of training, the number of school leaders with a qualification of school leadership, for example, or the number of kinds of decisions that school leaders can make when we are trying to measure the level of autonomy and the type of autonomy in the school system. And also we have subjective measures. For example, we can use stakeholders or expert panels to offer us their informed opinion about the level or the state of affairs in a certain area that interests us from a policy perspective. For example, we could turn to some experts to inform us about the level of autonomy that school leaders enjoy in schools. And also we have opinion surveys. For example, we could make an opinion survey on to find out what are the students' views about the level of, or the teachers' views on the level of their involvement in decision-making in schools. This could be a good indicator for example, distributed leadership. And also we can have very different kinds of sources and very different kinds of methods to collect such data, provided that we ensure that this process leads to data that are, and processes that are valid, and they are reliable. So all these processes into collecting data essentially conform with the standards of sound academic research. And now, from the indicators, we say indicators offer some glimpse of what we have achieved and what are our goals. So, in our discussions in PNOSL, we have concluded, we have processed the very different dimensions that we have discussed so far. So we identified 3 basic policy goals for all school systems in Europe. And the first one is the promotion of an enabling school leadership environment. This is a common best for everybody and from everybody in the school education. The promotion of professional standards for school leaders, evaluation of school leaders, and research on school leadership for equity and learning, and school leadership capacity building for equity and learning. For these broad goals, we have identified, under each broad goal, we have identified certain action lines, policy levers that policymakers can use to energize the system through school leadership policy development. So what are these action lines? Before we go into this, and we have all realized that our systems are really different, and most importantly, we have different traditions and different understandings of things. What is normal in the system regarding school leadership in other systems may seem absurd. For example, in Sweden, a school leader maybe does not have any teaching qualification, and maybe his previous job was a captain or a prison manager. This idea sounds absurd in the context, for example, of Greece or of other countries. Okay? What happens in Bulgaria, for example, regarding the selection of school leaders may seem strange to people from England or from Wales. So, what we say here is that there is no unique road to policy development on school leadership for equity and learning. There are different ways EU member states can address each of the policy goals and related policy action lines to achieve an advanced level of school leadership policy development. Also, there should be a comprehensive and coherent approach to policy development in each country, because decisions affecting school leadership in one area, such as, for example, reforms in the procedures and criteria for the selection of school leaders, or the introduction of new standards in the preparation of school leaders, can have multiple implications in other policy areas. For example, if you say that, okay, from now on, I would like to have all new school leaders having the same qualification, the implication is that, for example, you should have a training program for them, and you should think about what will be the cost for this training program and who pays for this training. And if you say, okay, prospective school leaders have to pay very hot money, for great money, to be trained, and the fees are quite high, then the implication is that you are in a risk of losing talent, because some very talented teachers may not want to go through this process because they don't have the money. Or if you say that this training program will be of very high standards, very demanding, then you will possibly lose talented individuals who do not have the time to follow this program. For example, people with prospective school leaders with a lot of family obligations. So these are different kinds of implications related to the adoption of certain policies. In the next 3 pages, I will describe each policy goal, with associated policy action lines. We have all discussed that an enabling school environment should be associated with policies related to deepening school autonomy for equity and learning, to deepening distributed leadership for equity and learning, and we have all discussed various approaches to distributed leadership and how they can contribute to empowering school leaders. And of course, we have discussed about accountability for equity and learning. Regarding the second policy goal, promotion of professional standards, evaluation and research on school leadership for equity and learning, one policy action line could be a way to define what are the expectations from school leaders. In many European education school systems, there are few statements, mostly hidden in bureaucratic documentation, about describing the roles and responsibilities of school leaders. Only in some European countries there are some separate documents with statements about what should everybody in
this system should expect from school leaders. So, one policy line would be to have a process and the result of, you know, for everybody to have such a kind of document. The second action line is the establishment of evaluation for equity in learning. In many school systems, school leaders are not going into such a process. It's a whole school evaluation, and from school evaluation, it is assumed that if a school is weak, then the school leader is not doing his job well, or his job well, or a system when a school when it goes well, the implication is that the school leader is also doing fine. But the problem with this approach is that maybe this school leader happens to be in the wrong place, in the wrong time, or in the right place, on the right time. So whole school evaluations can say something about the work of school leaders, but maybe they also hide things. And also, especially in strong schools, if you don't look at the variation in performance, if you always look at the mean performance, let's say, then you don't really look at the equity challenges in the school. And finally, the promotion of research to identify school leadership policies and strategies and practices that can promote effectively equity and learning. The third policy goal, and the last one, is school leadership capacity building for equity and learning. Here, we have talked about individual capacity many times, but the implication of distributed leadership is that we have to start thinking about school leadership capacity as a whole school ability to exploit the legal framework, to exploit projects that finance from the government, for example, to exploit colleagues and teachers, to exploit parents, to exploit students, I mean, to make them work together in order to achieve common goals related to equity and learning. So we have to make a conceptual shift in a way from individual leader capacity building to school leadership capacity building. Now, of course, this cannot happen from one moment to another. There are 5 action lines that we suggest. First is flagship initiatives that can build momentum. We have seen such examples in Europe. For example, I have in my mind Academy Leadership in Austria. This is a project running since 2004. And this project did achieve to energize the whole school leader population into engaging into training, into professional development activities. And so far, within a period of, let's say, 6-9 years, a large percentage of Austrian school leaders have participated in this, although in some areas participation is not compulsory. Another good example is coming from Sweden with a new program for training of school leaders, where this program was not and is not compulsory to school leaders who already work in their schools. But this program managed to attract the interest of thousands of school leaders in Sweden. So now something like 60% of school leaders in Sweden have gone through this program. So these 2 initiatives were very bold and very good examples of how to energize school leaders in a system. And also we have to go all these, very typical steps or very classical steps to capacity building, like the establishment and upgrading of school leaders' initial training. And we know that we have something like about 14 education systems, school systems in Europe that require a qualification for employment, a school leadership qualification for employment, but other systems do not want this. And there are very different kinds of justifications for this. For example, in England and Wales, there was such a compulsory qualification since 2009, something like that. But the new government said, okay, we don't want this. Because so, in other countries, they say, okay, maybe we should consider establishing such a qualification compulsory for new teachers. Of course, we have curricula and continuing professional development activities, and we have discussed here, and also there is an analysis on the briefing notes that most of you have, that there is very little emphasis in curricula on issues of equity. There is a lot about managing people or, dealing with government rules, but too few about equity. Of course, there are incentives for the participation of school leaders in professional development activities, and this is a very big issue, because, for example, if being a school leader demands from you an extensive, hard work, a heavy workload, then you have to think about pay, or you have to think about other incentives like offering them incentives to do professional development through other means. And of course, capacity building also means something about the selection and succession of school leaders. There are systems where being a head teacher in a school means is a political position. It's a position that is taken based on the political affiliation of the person, of the individual. So if you want to increase the capacity of the system, then you need to reflect upon the transparency, and the reliability, and the objectivity of the processes in the selection of school leaders. So these are different kinds of action lines that all systems should consider. And now I give the floor to Anna, because we need from you to do some kind of work.
This is